and I will continue to manage our attendees. It's very nice to see you all on a lovely St. Patrick's Day. As I add attendees, Seth, I will hand to you to get started here and also post our agenda in the chat box for everyone. Representative Barry, after you. We are
Excellent.
Live and recording.
Very good. Thank you so much, Andrew. Great to see everyone. Happy St. Patrick's Day, and welcome to our, what is this, the third meeting of the legislature's Broadband Caucus. I'm Seth Barry. I think most of us at this point know each other. See a lot of returning members, which is great. By the way, thanks for your flexibility since we had to reschedule the meeting last week. And we will meet again next week. This is last week's meeting, if that makes sense, and we're going to keep at our every other meeting dates as planned. Otherwise, hopefully there won't be too many interruptions from session. We'll just kind of try to roll with it. We will begin, as always, with asking new folks to introduce themselves. So if you're here for the first time, we will ask you to just pop up and say who you are and why you care about broadband. Maybe there's something specific to your district, or maybe there's some specific questions you're hoping to answer for yourself from this caucus. Just a little something about you and broadband. And then we will dive into the rest of the agenda, which includes a little review of where we've been, a little recap. We're going to touch on pending legislation. We're trying to make that a regular staple of these meetings. And Senator Bennett will lead a short discussion of some legislation. And then really the middle of today's sandwich is going to be an excellent forum. I'm very excited about it, with Tracy from the Maine Broadband Coalition and a telco doing some Broadband 101, just really talking about the technologies that are current and how they are deployed and sort of the fundamentals. And then also, we're very pleased to announce that we have with us tonight Tim Schneider, who's the former public advocate for the state of Maine, advocating for consumers before the Public Utilities Commission. And Tim is now, I believe, general counsel with Tilson Technology, a Maine-based company which employs a lot of veterans and is doing work all over the Northeast, maybe beyond, I think beyond as well, in deployment of communications technology. So he'll be talking about poles, one of my favorite topics, utility poles. They're actually incredibly important to broadband. And just to be clear, we're not talking about poles like politicians, look to, not poles with two L's, but poles with an E. And then we'll talk about next steps, little preview of what's to come. And as always, we will ask you for your input. There will be a link at the end that we always post to ask for your ideas about how we can make this caucus even better for you. So with that, I will just turn it over to whoever is new today. I apologize, I can't keep track of exactly who's here each time, so I'm just gonna ask you to
raise their hands.
Jump in.
Seth, you could ask them to raise their hands, then you can recognize them.
Good idea, Senator. That must be why you're a senator and I'm not. If you can raise your hand using the hand function, or even just what I do sometimes, old-fashioned hand raising, that'd be great. And let us know you're here for the first time. We want to welcome you properly. These are all returning members.
Do you not see hands raised?
I do. Oh, it's because I have to open up that screen. Oh, there we go. Okay.
A couple of us there.
Thank you. Now I can see them.
No problem.
And I was hoping to see them on the screen. Usually there's that little icon. So let me start with Representative Fockingham. The floor is yours to introduce yourself and say, a little bit why you're here, why you care about broadband.
Hello, Representative Barry and other members of the Broadband Caucus. I am Representative Billy Bob Fockingham, first time joiner to the group. And, broadband is something that we definitely need to work on and get broadband everywhere in the state of Maine. It's essential to give people a balanced, platform, and that's why I'm here.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Billy Bob, and for joining us, and welcome. Next up is Representative Jack Ducharme. Over to you, Jack.
Good evening. I am Representative Jack Ducharme. I represent House District 111, which is Madison, Norridgewock, and Solon. The reason I'm here is because in my prior life, I worked extensively up and down the 201 corridor. I have a 3-watt power booster in my vehicle so that I could have phone service all the way to Jackman. And I also, as long as I was in my vehicle, I had internet other than about 13 miles on that corridor. So broadband access is a real important thing for me. I've worked with Commissioner Johnson when she was with Connect Maine on some things, and I'm familiar with that. And so have been trying to get to this broadband caucus every week that you've had it since you started, and was able to make it happen tonight. So that's why I'm here.
Excellent. Third time's a charm. Must be the luck of the Irish that you could join us tonight. I hope you can stick with it. Heather Johnson, little known fact, actually started up in Jack's neck of the woods. She was economic development for Somerset County, where Representative Ducharme is from, before she came on as Connect Maine Director, and now Director of Economic and Community Development, serving the last 2 administrations. Okay, next up is Representative Dick Bradstreet. Welcome, Dick.
Thank you. Good to see you. I am Representative Dick Bradstreet. I represent House District 80. And that's comprised of Vassalboro, Windsor, Somerville, and part of Augusta. And if you see me leaving, it's not because I'm doing voluntarily. It's because I'm having trouble with my wireless internet. Already tonight, I've lost it twice. So I may stop my video to improve my reception. Also, I've had a couple of constituents call me, primarily from Somerville, which is very rural. One is an educator, administrator actually, and the other is an essential person and a worker. And they have very much difficulty in accessing the internet. So this is something I think is very timely. And if Maine is going to be a state that's going to attract people to come in and work remotely from here, we need this very much. I think some people are surprised when they come here that they don't have the access that they think they're going to have. So that's why I'm here. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Representative Bradstreet, for joining us. And we hope your connection is good enough. And if you come and go, we'll know why. I think that's it for new folks. See a lot of returning faces, and great to see you all. One more thing from me, and I'm going to turn it over to Japhet and Tracy for the next portion. I just want to alert you all that in the chat, Andrew has just posted our letter, and this is a letter which many members of the caucus, I think 17 or 18 so far, have signed, asking for a robust investment in broadband this session. Please do click on the link, sign it if you would like to do so, send it to others that you think may not have signed and may want to sign. And it does reference an excellent bill by our very own, my very own co-chair, Senator Rick Bennett, and I'm a proud signatory myself. So with that, I will turn it over to Japhet and Tracy for the next portion of the evening.
Thank you.
The hour, I should say. You're not here all evening, just for the hour.
Thank you.
Thank
Welcome,
you.
everybody.
Welcome. Go ahead, Trace.
Well, first, we are going to introduce you, if you haven't seen it, I'm assuming, Jay, that you're ready, to the Caucus Corner on the Maine Broadband Coalition website, which is where we are letting the world know who was at our caucus meetings and providing links to previous caucuses. So if you couldn't attend, you can listen to it or watch it. Explains what we're doing. That map shows what districts have been represented at the previous 2 caucuses that we've had. And beneath that are the caucus recordings. And I think that saves us from having to recap last time's meeting, right, Jay? Because people can just go and watch this.
Yeah, that's the goal.
I think
We
that's
wanna
a
make
better
sure-
use of our time anyway.
Yeah, Yeah.
Well, we have very little time to give, so Cliff Notes are always appreciated.
Perfect. So they're right there. Just click away. Couple of things that we're doing to try to call more attention to the caucus and to showcase some of you, since we can't buy you dinner when we have these meetings, is give you the opportunity to do a little promotional video to talk about. I think we have 3 or 4 questions on the list that we would like you to answer. You can just record it into your phone and send it to us, and we're going to start posting those. I do have one from, well, I almost have one from Representative Sachs. It's in Google and I need permission to get it, so we'll have that posted as soon as I can get my hands on it. And I know Jay is working with a couple of others, but just to give you an opportunity to talk to the world, but mostly to your constituents, to say, this is why we think broadband is important, and this is what I'm going to do to help it get here. So,
and thank you. Andrew just dropped the link to sign up for that in the chat. So hopefully you guys can click through to that. Again, as Tracy was saying, this is just to highlight you and your perspective on the importance of broadband in your constituency. So the more of you that sign up, I think the better we'll sort of elevate this issue, and more of your constituents will hear directly from you about this important issue.
And we'll also be pushing that kind of stuff to Facebook and Twitter to promote what's happening here and on the Caucus Corner on the website. So some free publicity that we're happy to provide. Any questions or anything?
Tracy, I might, and Jeff, I might just also add, I think excellent overview and update. Thank you. Back to the letter that Representative Berry highlighted. Last week, last session, we had an excellent conversation. You all had an excellent conversation around an orientation towards action. And you know, there's a lot of factors out there as far as state and public funding for broadband in Maine. Between the governor's budget proposal, bond legislation, the end sentiment that you all shared was that more funding is needed across the board. And ultimately, this letter, a quick and easy way, pardon the airplane flying by right now, joys of living in Portland. It's very loud. You all identified really a call to action. This letter represents a quick and easy way to do it. Once the members of the caucus sign, once we get a critical mass of signatures, which we're pretty close to, the Broadband Coalition is going to open this up to a pretty broad array, a network of affiliates who participated in last summer's bond campaign. It's really a message that most broadband advocates will be able to get behind regardless. And once we see that critical mass of caucus signatures, we'll open it up and then bring it back to you to share with the rest of your colleagues and really get a maximum level of signatures. So I will repost that letter. There are 23 of you on this call, maybe 22. We would love to see at least 22 signatures in the next day or so. So thanks. And then I believe, Senator Bennett, you're up next.
Well, thank you. Yeah, this is the point in our agenda where we would normally do a quick update on a proposed broadband bill or two that that our members have that would like to talk about it. And we had planned to have Representative Collmore speak about LD 848. I don't see Representative Collmore on here right now, however. Do I have that right, Andrew?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
We have yeah, that's right.
Okay, so maybe we'll give her time again. You know, she may come later, but I'm happy if one of you is ready to talk about a piece of legislation that you have that relates to broadband for a few minutes and give us a quick briefing. And just please raise your hand and I will recognize you. If you're not ready for that, then I see Representative Falkingham has raised his hand. So Billy Bob, happy to turn the floor over to you for a few minutes to discuss your legislation.
Thanks. I don't have a piece of legislation, but I was wondering if I could just open up by presenting a question. My question is, and I've seen the 100 million figure thrown out there for a bond. What has there been a study done, or Seth, if you can answer this, or Rick, if you can answer this, anyone else? Does anybody know what it will cost to get broadband to essentially the whole state, or, you know, at least 90% plus of the residents of the state? Does anybody know that?
Well, it not with specificity, but I will say this, and I'll let others answer as well. But the $100 million in my bond proposal comes from the recognition that the main broadband plan itself suggests that there should be a $600 million investment that would get us there. Now, it's a little murky as to, you know, how much would be state, how much would be other sources, particularly federal and private money, because as we know, a lot of these, what we're trying to do is to stimulate private investment for the most part. There may be times when we want to have public assets, but the principal way of getting this done and getting it done in a hurry is to rely on our private sector partners to do it, and to use the state funds as a match against private money, as well as federal money, which very well may be coming. It's already coming in the $1.9 billion that we are going to receive from the most recent passage, but then also from possibly a later infrastructure bill, which is currently being debated in Congress and seems to have some legs under it federally. So I'll leave it at that. And Seth or others, if you have an answer to Billy Bob's question, I think it's a great topic to focus on for a few minutes if we have it.
Yeah, I think you answered it very well, Senator Bennett. And it's a great question, Billy Bob. It's a question that really needs to be asked and answered. So I would strongly encourage you and others who are interested in that to check out the broadband plan, the state broadband plan, which is posted in the chat now. That is with some small changes. It's essentially the plan that was developed under the LePage administration with Heather Johnson as the director of the Connect Maine Authority, and it's ambitious. Around that time, also, I'm thinking this was maybe 2016, 2017. No, that's wrong. When was, okay, no, 2016, 2017, it was towards the end of the LePage administration, when the state put together this plan. The Maine Development Foundation and the Chamber of Commerce, the Maine Chamber of Commerce, also came out with a very strong position statement, which they have maintained since, that Maine should be investing, from the state, should be investing $100 million per year for broadband over the next several years. That's in order to draw down some of the private dollars, to bring some of the private effort that Senator Bennett referred to. Every time that the state helps out to close the gap where a project doesn't pencil out in the rural areas, then private industry can do the rest, and private customers can do the rest. Municipalities help, sometimes nonprofits help. Sometimes there's federal money, and we're going to be talking about some federal money soon, which we're very excited about, and that should help us as well. But the position of the chamber and the Maine Development Foundation is $100 million per year. I think Senator Bennett's is really half of that because it would be 100 million in a biennium that he's proposing. So we'll come back to the size and scale of this. I think tonight will be helpful also to talk about sort of the technology and how this is done. Because part of the good news here is broadband does not develop potholes for the most part. Once you make the investment, you don't have to go back and make it again 7 years later. So that's something that we can also talk about more as we go forward. Great question, Billy Bob, and thank you for that.
Very good. I think we have 3 minutes left to this segment of the hour. So anybody else want to weigh in on this question of Billy Bob's? Just raise your hand if you would. If not, we can move on to, with a couple of minutes, to bits, bytes, and polls and partnerships, which I will be happy. I don't see anybody raising their hand, so I think we can move on happily to that, and I'll turn it back over to Andrew.
And definitely a good conversation about funding amounts. The plan does call for 600 million, give or take, and there are many estimates that may be conservative, but the plan is a good one. And also, I just want to give you all a shout out in that this is a markedly bipartisan caucus and bicameral caucus. Really great work. Last time you all had set a goal of really continuing to expand your ranks, and I think that that's a special thing about this caucus, and I encourage you to both continue inviting your colleagues, and also in particular your colleagues with active bills. We want to make sure there's time and space to share information about active bills. Many of the bills, of course, are not printed. It'll be exciting to get Representative Collmore here in the future to speak to her bill. But definitely, please help us help you in getting your colleagues here. Our focus, as Senator Bennett just said, is today is a sort of focused education session. In our early surveys to you, we said, what do you want to hear about? What do you want to talk about in these sessions? And it was a balance of inspiring stories and best practices elsewhere, a little bit of dispelling some myths, a little bit of just some basic 101. Many of you are pretty up to speed, pun definitely intended. And so, some of this may be redundant, but there's no shortage of nuance in the technology, in the engineering. And so our goal for the next few minutes is to spend some time at a broad overview and then probably drill into one of the more nuanced areas from a poll standpoint with our guest. So as we do this, I'm going to share my screen of a pretty nice video that is compliments of our partner here, Telco.
Yep.
A video.
Not at the beginning, though.
Try that again.
There you go.
Fun times. Thanks, everybody.
No audio.
Audio.
No audio.
All right, Tracy. If you're queued up to share, I will let you share, Tracy.
I'm hoping that we'll have audio with mine. Here we go.
At Telco, we're committed to keeping rural America connected. That's why we're building fiber broadband internet to offer the fastest bandwidth and speeds to more homes, businesses, and communities.
Now we can hear it, but not see it.
You've got to share screen.
Better and faster.
I was.
About 40 years ago, no one even knew what the internet was or what it did. Back then, we used copper wire to deliver telephone service and coaxial cable to deliver TV. But neither were designed to transmit.
Yeah, I'm not seeing a video.
No, we don't have it.
God, are we that technology weak? You can hear it, but not see it.
Somebody could go to a broadband caucus and figure it out.
I know. So you can hear it, but not see it when I shared it?
It wasn't sharing the video. We could just hear it, I think, through your computer.
That's really weird because unless I don't have permission to share,
You have permission.
well, let me try again.
Here we go.
That looks better. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Let's
Back it
pray
up.
that you can hear it now.
Just back it up.
That's when we first adapted.
Great.
At Telco,
That'll
we're
work.
committed to keeping rural America connected. That's why we're building fiber broadband internet to offer the fastest bandwidth and speeds to more homes, businesses, and communities. What exactly is fiber broadband? What makes it better and faster? About 40 years ago, no one even knew what the internet was or what it did. Back then, we used copper wire to deliver telephone service and coaxial cable to deliver TV, but neither were designed to transmit data. In the mid-90s, customers began demanding internet access. That's when we first adapted both our phone and cable networks to allow for internet access. With telephone, it was digital subscriber line, or DSL, and with coaxial cable, the signal traveled on the cable. DSL and coaxial cables transmit data as a secondary function. Remember, they're built for phone and TV first. Fiber is designed for transmitting data, period. Fiber broadband is delivered through networks of fiber optic cables, which are made up of hair-thin glass fibers wrapped in reflective coating that provide an ideal pathway for laser pulses of light to travel at high speeds. These light pulses carry data faster and further than electricity over copper cables, and when used to provide fiber optic internet, offer the fastest internet speeds available today. So, how does fiber outperform cable and copper phone lines? First, you need to understand data. Data is anything that is sent and received over the internet. Then there's bandwidth. When we talk about bandwidth, we're talking about how much data you can send and receive over the internet at any given time. Think of your internet speed or bandwidth as different sizes of water pipes. Faster speeds or higher bandwidth mean a bigger pipe and more water, data, can travel through at a time. Anything you send is an upload, sending pictures to the cloud or emailing a document. Anything you receive is a download, a show you're streaming, automated software updates on your devices, anything sent to you. When you're gaming or video conferencing, you're using both at the same time. Now is a good time to talk about symmetrical speeds versus asymmetrical speeds. Asymmetrical speeds mean that more data can travel one way than the other. In the case of cable and DSL, download speeds are faster and uploads are slower. With symmetrical speeds, the same amount of data can be uploaded as downloaded at the same time. Activities that you'll want symmetrical speeds for are things like online gaming, video chatting, telemedicine, or powering idle smart devices that are constantly sending and receiving data. So now that you know all the technical terms, it's easier to understand the difference between cable and fiber. Fiber does not limit the amount of data it can transfer. Today, its bandwidth can range from as little as 100 megabits per second to as much as 1 gig, but that's just the beginning. We know that fiber is capable of much, much more. Fiber signal does not deteriorate over distance as much as copper does, and fiber provides for symmetrical speeds where it's much harder to attain with copper or coaxial cable. We've almost gone as far as we can go with the capabilities of copper and coaxial for the internet. With fiber, this is just the beginning. We don't even know its full capabilities yet. The need for fiber is growing rapidly, and we're building it in our service areas as fast as resources allow. Learn more about fiber broadband at otelco.com.
So, and that was done before COVID. Otherwise, I think telemedicine and education would have been at the top of the list of things you need symmetrical bandwidth for. Any questions? All right, then I'm going to pitch it back to you, Andrew, and on to Tim.
Good. Well, no doubt for many of you, this is coverage of some good basics. And it's a useful piece of educational collateral to share. I don't know about you, every conversation I have ends up getting pretty in the weeds on some broadband fundamentals, and this is a helpful tool and reminder. We'll be trying to sprinkle in some elements of some basic education through the duration of the caucus, including other articles, books, and references for you all. The Broadband Coalition is definitely a resource for you along those lines. There's a good resource library. If you haven't checked it out, please do so. And now, unless there's further questions, a topic on the top of everybody's list of things close to their heart. I want to hand to Mr. Schneider from Tilson. Thank you so much, Tim, for joining us today and giving us a lay of the land and overview of polls and practices.
Great, thanks, Andrew. Thanks everyone for having me. Can you hear me all right?
Hey.
All right, sweet. So yeah, thank you, Andrew, and thank you for the invitation. Thank you, Representative Barry, for inviting me. For those of you I haven't met, which is a lot of people, I'm Tim Schneider. I'm the General Counsel at Tilson. And now that I'm in the private sector, I have to give the obligatory, what is Tilson? And you might be good to know because we're a main company. We're headquartered here in Portland. We have about 500 employees and offices in 17 states. And what we do is design, build, and provide telecommunication consulting services all over the country. If you are familiar with a 3-ring binder, we built that. And right now we're deploying fiber in states all over the country. Right now, I just was making a list in preparation for this. We're doing it in Utah, Wisconsin, Vermont, New Hampshire, Connecticut. So we're doing that all over, and we're headquartered here in Portland, and we're a fast-growing Maine company, and we're really grateful for all that the legislature does to support Maine businesses. Prior to being at Tilson, I had the honor and privilege of being appointed to serve as the Maine Public Advocate from 2013 to 2017, which was a great job. And while I was there, our office did a lot of broadband-related advocacy, but without the support of a Broadband Caucus, which I'm so glad exists. I see some familiar faces here for people who I worked with during that time. Great to see rather than calling everyone out. And so it's been a privilege to be able to do broadband policy work at the state and then sort of transition to actually deploying broadband and thinking about these problems on behalf of Maine Company as we actually do the work of deploying broadband all over the country. I thought that question was great, like why you care about broadband. And so I care about broadband because I think it's essential to the long-term viability of rural communities like the one I grew up in and the ones I lived in Maine. I actually made the decision to go to law school after working in Washington County for the Maine Seacoast Mission and seeing the importance of broadband to those communities. And I think probably a lot of people here can identify with that. But enough about that. Andrew invited me here to talk about pole attachment. So you're here at this meeting because you care about broadband. And if you care about broadband, you care about pole attachment. And you probably didn't know that you cared about pole attachment for many of you before this meeting. And so hopefully by the time I'm done talking, you'll understand why that statement is true and why you care about pole attachment. If you really get the bug, you'll find yourself driving down the road in Maine, looking up at the utility poles, much to the risk of your fellow drivers as you try and spot the fiber or the small cells or the cable and identify out of compliance utility poles all along the route. That's many steps down the road, but hopefully we'll just get to the basics today. Okay, so why should caring about broadband mean caring about pole attachment? So typically caring about broadband means bringing broadband to places that don't currently have it. And so as Tracy described, mostly that means bringing fiber to where it is not currently. And so this will, invites a, what about wireless? What about, even if you're bringing wireless, you're gonna rely on fiber backhaul. So when I say that Tilson is deploying fiber all over the country, a lot of that fiber is being deployed on behalf of wireless companies. So we're bringing it to a cell tower, or we're bringing it to small cells, which are little antennas mounted atop utility poles. All of that, the first thing you do when you put in a new small cell is you attach fiber to connect it and bring it back. That's how this whole thing works. The backbone of everything that we're gonna do from a broadband perspective is fiber. So you wanna put fiber where it is not. Here are your choices. You can attach to an existing utility pole. You can overlash existing cables. So you might see this actually as you drive down the road on copper cables. You'll see a very thin, clear spool wrapped around the existing old thick copper tape cable. That's called overlashing. You can install your own poles, which Axiom has actually done out on the Cranberry Islands. Rather than attach an existing pole, they put up their own poles and then ran their fiber around on poles out there. There may be wireless solutions that work in some places, or you can go underground. And in places where the pole attachment regime is totally broken, or you're not allowed to have utility poles, what our teams do is they dig underground, and it's incredibly expensive. All of those explanations, or in some places you can go underwater. So if you need to serve an island community, that's not an option in most places. So if you want to deploy quickly and cheaply, most often your solution, the cheapest solution is to attach to an existing utility pole. You can think of this is like the cost of dollars per foot versus hundreds of dollars per foot, say, if you were going underground. So far, so good. Those are your ways. You want to bring fiber to where it is not, you're probably going to want to attach to a utility pole. Most people don't think about what is required to put fiber on a utility pole. The first thing you need is space on the utility pole. So if you go out to most communities in Maine, particularly rural communities, you'll see 2, maybe 3 things on the utility pole. At the very top of that pole, you'll see electricity. That's either 3-phase or single phase. And then you'll see copper wire. That'll be a thick, fat wire that's it's probably heavy and it sags down low. And you might see just above that, you might see cable, coaxial cable, which is deployed by the cable companies. In most rural communities, I mean, that's only in the downtowns. So whereas the copper and the electricity typically run everywhere, cable never had an obligation to build out beyond the downtown. So you'll typically only see that. You won't see that sort of in the most rural places. In lieu of a PowerPoint presentation, I just am going to share links for you all. And so this is a link to a helpful image from the Florida PUC, Public Utility Commission of Florida. This is their What's on a Utility Pole. So this gives you if you can see this, it gives you the link that I shared in the chat. Nope, I didn't share it in the chat. I just shared it with Andrew. I'll send it to everybody. There we go. Everyone should be able to see that link. Great.
Yes.
So that gives you your map of the utility pole. And there's a couple things I want you to notice. First, at the very top of the utility pole, it's all electric. If you are a communications worker, like the people who work for Tilson or subcontractors, you typically want to go nowhere near that because it's electrified and it's dangerous. All the work that you want to happen is in the zones labeled 11 and 12, the communications worker safety zone and the communication space. That's where your fiber, that's where your cable, that's where your copper wire, that's where that's all going to exist. And that is where we're going to spend the rest of this conversation. So I'm going to stop there. Any questions so far on what I've said? That's a lot of information in a very short period of time. All right, I'll keep rolling. I don't see any hands. All right.
Assistance.
Okay.
So far, so good.
In Maine, poles are typically owned by 1 or 2 entities. They're either owned by the electric utility, the telephone utility, so the incumbent in any area, or both. In some cases, they're joint owned. They're owned by both entities. This is really important because those are the folks you need permission from if you want to attach to an existing utility pole. And those are the people you're going to pay rent to once your fiber is hung on that utility pole. You're going to pay them a pole attachment rate per year for the space you use on their pole. All right. Your incumbent phone company, I just used a little bit of jargon there. So just to pause on that. There was a time where we had monopoly regulation of telephone companies. I was mostly not alive during that time, but I hear it existed. And so in each area in Maine, there was one phone company that was the monopoly service provider. So in much of Maine, that is now Consolidated, formerly Fairpoint, formerly Verizon. You can sort of work your way back through the stream of ownership. But in some cases, Maine has a long and storied tradition of independent telephone companies, many of which you are familiar with and serve the areas which you represent. So this is, well, TDS has absorbed many of these. This is Unitel. This is, oh man, I'm gonna forget somebody. I actually I'm particularly fond of those companies because they tend to be deeply committed to their communities, and they've often made some of the fiber investments where larger companies have not. Anyway, attaching to, that was my weird digression on independent telephone companies, sorry.
That's important, actually. We'll probably come back to that. Keep going.
All right, so attaching to utility poles is expensive and time consuming. So Tilson recently deployed fiber in rural New Hampshire on behalf of the New Hampshire Electric Co-op. So a project is pretty cool, funded by some CARES Act funding. And when they asked us what it would cost for Make Ready to prepare the poles to put the fiber on it, not to hang the fiber on the pole, just to get it ready so that we could hang the fiber, we told them it would cost $10,000 per mile. It actually ended up costing a little bit less than that, but if you're thinking about the cost of fiber deployment, even in a very rural area, it can be really expensive just to get the pole ready. And I just used another term of art called Make Ready, and no one knows what that is. Here's what Make Ready is. I want to hang my fiber on a utility pole. I call up the phone company and the electric company. I say, I want to hang fiber on your pole. We have to go out and do a survey to see what's on that pole. We'll work with the phone company typically to get an estimate of what, if anything, will have to move to place that fiber. There's no centralized database of what's on every pole. So we actually go out, our team will go out and take pictures, often in advance. We work with the phone company, they draw a paper picture that says, here's the things on the pole. They say, oh, if you want to install there, we're going to keep the phone company lowest in many places. We're going to slot you in right here. So you'll have to move that fiber. You'll have to move this cable company. Oh, that pole will need to be replaced. And they give you an estimate of what it will cost to do all of those things, because you, as the new attacher, have to go and pay each of those people to move their stuff, because you're the one causing the cost. It's sort of a basic principle of utility regulation. Then you go, you notify the other attachers that you got to move their stuff. So you pay some costs, you notify the other attachers and get them to move their stuff. They have a set period of time to do that, and you have to wait for them to do it. They have all their own subcontractors who are the only ones who can touch their things. You wait a very long period of time, in anywhere from 4 months, or it could be longer if there are delays in the process. Then you hang your stuff. And then once that process is all done, you can provide service to the customer you were going to reach with that fiber. So that's expensive. It's time consuming. If you're just a competitive telecommunications provider, oh, right, thanks, Don. That's the first step is the application process. You get all the numbers of the poles and tell the telco where you want to add your lines. This is a really important point, because often if you are bringing fiber to a place where it isn't already, you have to go tell the person who's already providing service to that place that you're going to go there and steal their customer. You can see where that might present competitive problems. All right, that's a lot, again, to tell everybody. You can see that I am uncharacteristically excited about pole attachment. Anyway, so you've done all that process and then you can deploy broadband. So I want to talk a little bit more about that process, because if you've noticed, there's one entity you have to go to, right? You have to go to the phone company. If we're only setting one set of poles on the side of the road, generally, except out on the cranberries. And so this is a classic case of monopoly services, right? And so we regulate monopoly services, and Maine is no different. In some states, it's regulated by the FCC, but in Maine, pole attachment is regulated by the Maine PUC. There's a statute, your legislators, 35A, section 711, I will post a link in the chat, is the statute that governs joint use. And I also I'll provide a link to the Maine PUC's pole attachment licensing page, which is a good point of reference for all things Maine pole attachment. So what does the Maine Public Utilities Commission regulate? They regulate the rates, terms, and conditions of pole attachment. So they regulate the rate that a pole owner can charge for that rent that you pay on an annual basis for that pole. And there's a whole formula that they use to calculate that rate and say what's a reasonable rate. And then they regulate the terms of attachment. So what a utility can require you to do if it's taking too long. They're the ones who enforce mandatory timelines for Make Ready. They do all that stuff. Anyway, that's your primer on on pole attachment and why it matters for broadband attachment. I'm going to spend my remaining 2 minutes, assuming that I have it, Andrew, to just talk. Is that a yes? Do I have 2 minutes?
There, questions should come in through chat and or raised hands as we change gears here.
All right, I have two more minutes. I'm going to take it. Maine has done a lot in the last 2 years to reform pole attachment. They've modernized the rates. They've shortened the timelines for pole attachment. They're currently thinking about one-touch make ready, which is instead of having everybody move their stuff one by one, you just have one person come who's authorized and they move everything at once. It's much faster. The FCC has already required this in the states they regulated. But we're starting to see other innovations. So Vermont utilities just got approval in Vermont to offer low-cost make ready to serve underserved areas. The PUC over there approved that. And some states are starting to experiment with pole administration or ownership by someone other than the phone company. So we're starting to see some of those things. So I think there's a real opportunity for Maine as it thinks about broadband deployment to think about creative ways that it can use the pole attachment process to help deploy broadband. And I'm sure you'll see legislative proposals that start to think about that. And I know the PUC is thinking about that. All right, there's your crash course in pole attachment. And I would just say, I'll put my email address in the chat, but at Tilson, we really care about broadband in Maine. We have for a while. It's both our business and our passion, and it's my personal passion. So I'm happy to answer any individual questions you have if we aren't able to get to them here. So I will give folks my email address and feel free to hit me up. All right.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Tim. And I think Andrew, correct me if I'm wrong, we have maybe 5 minutes for questions. And why don't we dive right in? There was a question from Representative Chiazzo, who may be a plant, I'm not sure. He wanted to ask you about the proceeding that is going on at the PUC regarding, I want to make sure I get his question right. Where was that? I believe it was about, regarding one-touch make ready.
Yeah, so was there a specific question about it or just like an update?
Just a quick update, maybe just say what it is, because we're pretty basic here.
Yeah, so when I was given my quick description, I said that if you are someone who wants to go attach to a utility pole and that there's existing stuff there you have to move as part of the make ready process. The current process is you have to go and get a list of the people who are there. You have to call them up and ask them to move their stuff. And they send their contractor out one at a time in sequence to move each of that stuff. And they have a specified amount of time. I think it's 15 days. I'm a little rusty on my rules. They have a specified amount of time and you basically stack all the time. So for each additional attacher, it takes longer to do it. A core innovation that someone who looked at this discovered was like, wait, what if we have one person go, they move everybody's stuff, and then they hang your fiber in one trip. And we could do it in like a fraction of the time. So there's a bunch of, that sounds like a really good idea. There's a bunch of other stuff you'd need to do around that, but that's called one-touch make ready. Because the idea is that there's only one contractor touching the pole at a time. And the PUC has a proceeding right now to explore whether that should be the rule in Maine. This is something that seemed absolutely insane. Like it was too radical when I was at the OPA to propose, and now the PUC is considering doing it after the FCC has done it in all the 22 states that they regulate. So it offers a real opportunity to speed up deployment. But, and here's the big tricky part here, is that you need a bunch of things that don't currently exist in Maine. You need a pole database that you don't, so you need to know who all those attachers are. You need a system for qualifying people who would go out and do that make ready work. Like who's qualified? It's not just, you don't want like just any chucklehead with a truck. You need to know people who are like prepared and able to do this. So there's a bunch of sort of back end stuff that doesn't exist right now before you implement one touch make ready. And my sense is that the commission is grappling with how to do that stuff before they can implement one touch make ready.
Excellent. Well, Tim, this has been great. I am not seeing too many other questions. I think there's a very specific one from Japhet, which I'll let him email you about. Or do you want to take? You see
Representative
that?
Barry, I can answer that in less
Excellent.
than a minute.
Great.
So
You got it.
my cost to hang fiber was the make ready cost. So I haven't included the cost of materials and deployment. So that was just a make ready cost. What the question, does burying fiber optic cable end up being faster in some cases? This is actually, so we are deploying in Connecticut right now. The process for deploying, the make ready process is so broken in Connecticut that the times to hang fiber is somewhere between 1 year and literally never. And so in those places, the decision, the people who we're deploying on behalf of have just said, there's no way that we're going to actually get this deployed. If we want to meet our speed to market goals, we're just going to go underground, and even though it's going to cost more. So bad make ready can actually drive up the cost of broadband deployment. And so if you get this right, you make it quick, cost effective, you can lower the cost of broadband deployment sort of statewide. It's not a 50% solution. This is like a 10% solution.
Excellent. Well, Tim, this has been terrific. Thank you so much. I'm going to be handing it back to Senator Bennett, but I just want to say that between Tracy and the video about the importance of fiber and your discussion, your passionate discussion about the importance of pole attachment and make ready, we've learned a lot tonight. And the folks will be able to go back and review this video if they want to see it all again and make sure they get the nuances. Thanks for those links as well, and for posting your email address so folks can follow up with you if they have questions. So again, thanks to Tim Schneider, and we want to make sure to get you out of here at 7 o'clock, everyone, so you can go drink your green beer. So I'm going to hand it back to Senator Bennett.
Thank you. Top of the morning to you. So thank you again, Tim, and all for the presentation. It was excellent. My closing remarks here is just a few reminders, topics and focus for the next meeting. There's been a lot of talk about Starlink, for example, and what that means. There's some information which Andrew has made available about, some of the experience that beta testers have had, and I encourage you to look that over prior to our meeting next week, where we'll be spending a block of time to discuss Starlink and what it means and what its opportunities are. And then I also want to flag for you the webinar on it's a Maine Broadband Coalition webinar with Peggy and Nick from Connect Maine Authority, which is Monday on the 22nd at 10 a.m. I know that many of us have committee meetings at that hour, but hopefully that will be that'll be recorded, right, Andrew? So people can tune in later, and if they can't do it at 10, but please take advantage of that if you can. Finally, endorsement letter. Again, it's in the chat. Maybe Andrew, you can just post it again. It's really critical to get this done and get it done soon. If you wish to sign the letter to endorse the broadband bond, please do so as soon as you can. And as Representative Berry said, please share it with friends who in the legislature who share your concern. Don't forget to sign up for storytelling with the Google form that also is being posted in the chat. Thank you, Andrew. And please give any feedback, update, and specific goals on the other form being posted in the chat. And I'll give you a moment to click on all those so they don't go away as our Zoom meeting goes away. So please click on those now and put them in your browser open, and then you can deal with them while you're drinking your green beer. Our next meeting, because this one was delayed a week, is actually next week. So we're going to be meeting again next Wednesday evening, March 24th at 6 p.m. As always, members of the public and invited guests are welcome, but registration is required. And so Andrew will be making registration available to you all. Did I forget anything, Representative Berry?
I think that covers it. Well done.
All right. With thanks to Andrew and Tracy in particular for organizing, I want to say, and all of you for taking, I know it's like we're zoomed out, and I really am grateful to see such a fabulous turnout here. It really speaks, it's very heartening for all of us, I think, to see the enthusiasm across the aisle and across the chambers for broadband. This is the year to do it. And I'm really grateful for all of your energy and enthusiasm. With that, we'll call it an evening and adjourn 1 minute early.
Happy St. Patrick's Day, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Everybody, have a great one.